I work in the unfashionable end of fashion. 11 years ago, a friend of mine, Dr. Eric Dorfman, was writing a book on global warming, and he asked me what I knew about sustainable textiles, but at the time wasn't a lot. And the research for that book really blew my mind. Textiles and clothing is our fastest growing waste stream in many regions, and it's growing exponentially. So we totally upended our business model from importing textiles from Asia to working in the waste end of textiles and clothing. So living in Wellington, we looked at what our local waste streams were, and what came up all the time was coffee sacks, because we have a really strong coffee culture in New Zealand and an overabundance of these jute coffee sacks. So we made a few products out of them, one being this hat. And at the time I was working in a shared office with an American interior designer, and she said, Starbucks would really love these. So we leveraged our way into Starbucks head office in Seattle, and actually they didn't love them. They said to us they didn't want to look like hot dog vendors, but the silver lining was that they were looking to reuse their coffee sacks within their cafe fit-outs. So we ended up working with them for a couple of years, creating textiles out of their jute coffee sacks. We launched a product in Mayfair, won a number of awards, and we were feeling really, really chuffed with ourselves until we saw just one of their warehouses. And Starbucks has 6 of these in the States. Each single coffee sack, when it's empty, weighs about 1 kilo, and we realised that we could take 1,000 kilos out of this warehouse and the difference would be negligible. That individual projects weren't actually going to solve the issue of textile waste, and what was needed was a macro systems change. Fast forward to 2015, I'm working in Milan on a bast fibre project, and New Zealand Post approached us because I've been looking at upcycling the uniforms and had issues around waste and around market demand for them. So we established a Textile Reuse Programme, which we launched last year with Minister Eugenie Sage. So we designed this macro system for New Zealand textiles. We then did a number of feasibility studies and trials. This was with Air New Zealand's polyester cabin crew uniforms, working with an American company. We used green chemistry to take it back to its molecular form and then re-extrude it as PET. Wellington Zoo was decommissioning their uniforms, and we decided to make a case study out of it so we could actually map the environmental impacts of that. Zoo uniforms are really hard wearing, so we debranded them and they went back out into the community for reuse, and then we could map the impacts of that. So roughly in doing that, they saved about 8,500 kilos carbon equivalent and about 856,000 litres of water. So this was launched last year by Minister Eugenie Sage, and we've got a number of corporate companies involved in this program, providing the money for the research and development, which also the Ministry for the Environment assists us with. The textile and clothing industry is changing really rapidly. A textile company, or a reseller in the States, Rent the Runway, they're now valued at $1 billion. So they lease clothing out to customers, so it's no longer the ownership model. And just last year, second-hand and vintage industry, Their value was 360 billion US dollars, whereas the luxury market was only $305 billion. So luxury conglomerates now are investing in the resale market. So things are rapidly changing about how we use our garments, how we own them, do we lease them, do we resell them? And this is where we sit, at that very end of creating that movement through to a circular economy where we take our used clothing that used to go to landfill and creating the solutions for it to go back into industry as an industrial source, so they're not going into landfill, creating greenhouse gases and decomposing. So we really have transitioned now into a new economy for textiles, a circular economy. Thank you.